Hey, let's talk about why Bayonetta 4 hasn't been announced yet, what news has circulated around the title, and my thoughts. With that out of the way, let's get right into it. Our story starts in 2022. The previous entry in the series, Bayonetta 3, was released in October of that year, and the series did set up what fans expected to be the next game in the series. For this next portion, I'm going to cover spoilers from Bayonetta 3 and will be discussing the ending of the game. If you haven't played Bayonetta or don't want to be spoiled, click off now. The game ends when we learn the side character Viola is the daughter of Bayonetta and Luca from another universe. During the final fight with the Singularity, Bayonetta, Luca, and Viola are able to defeat the Singularity with the help of Gamora, but Bayonetta's Umbron watch is cracked, and that causes her to lose control of Gamora, and Bayonetta's soul is then separated from her body, and her and Luca are brought to Inferno. The post-credit scene focuses on Viola, where she is looking for work and is referenced as her family name Bayonetta. I'm going to save my thoughts for the end, but this ending was divisive among the community and fans, and I don't think most fans were excited to play as Viola in a sequel and would prefer Bayonetta coming back somehow instead of just passing on the family name. 1 month later, in November of 2022, we got our first official mention of the game from Platinum Games Senior Vice President and Chief Game Designer Hideki Kamiya. He took to Twitter to say the ending of Bayonetta 3 wasn't conveyed correctly. He said, quote, "I don't think it was unexpected at all, but it seems that the ending of Bayo 3 wasn't conveyed correctly to everyone. So I think Bayo 4 will be an unexpected development for everyone. After all, when Bayo 4 comes out, I'm sure there will be people who say, you added that as an afterthought, so I'll say it now." It's not exactly clear what he means by this. He did already know that fans weren't expecting a multiverse plotline with a setup for an all-new character moving forward, but this was the first time we hear the game mentioned, and it sounds like the story, at least in broad strokes, was being worked on at Platinum Games, and they had a rough outline for where they wanted this story to continue, and that 3 would be directly tied into that. Then we moved to 2023. We learned in September that Hideki Kamiya was leaving Platinum Games, and his last day would be October 12th. Mind you, he helped found this studio in 2006, so him leaving is a big impact to the studio. Platinum Games released an official statement thanking him for his service and partnership, but immediately fans were worried if this means Bayonetta 4 is dead, or if the studio would continue to create the games without the man that was the driving creative force. One of his projects since leaving the studio was to create a YouTube channel, and he has answered questions about Bayonetta over the years. In November of 2023, he was asked about the future of Bayonetta, and he said he had always planned for 9 parts of the Bayonetta saga, but says he might have to take the full saga to his grave with him, and it's a shame. And he continued on saying that he doesn't own the Bayonetta IP, but he supposes Platinum Games will likely keep the franchise going. Which is kinda sad to hear that so shortly after him leaving, it sounded like he still wished he could have worked on Bayonetta and continued being involved somehow, but at least at this point in the timeline he wasn't involved and didn't have any actual say. We didn't get any relevant stories in 2024, so we can skip ahead to 2025. Hideki once again answered more questions and gave his plans for the Bayonetta series if he would have stayed on with Platinum Games. He did say Bayonetta 3 was meant to be a stopping point for the franchise, and what was created next would have started fresh in regards to the story and game design. He said he does have ideas for the story and wanted to express them properly through a game, but he's not in a position to do that anymore. He also closed out by saying he had thought at one point maybe Bayonetta 4 would lead to another trilogy. And unfortunately, that is everything we know about the game in comments made officially. And I want to close out with my thoughts. We will never know the full story of why Hideki wanted to leave Platinum Games, but I have to think that Platinum Games will eventually release a new Bayonetta game with or without Hideki. There was an 8-year gap between the second and third game in terms of development, So I don't think it's too surprising we will likely have another long wait time between whatever the next entry in the franchise is. I think it's very likely the team considers rebooting the franchise altogether and tries to bring in a new generation of fans. Nintendo did announce Bayonetta 3 sold over 1 million copies in less than 3 months, which does make it in line with previous Bayonetta games in terms of sales, but it doesn't seem to have branched out beyond the core fan base, which is why I think it's likely Platinum Games decides to cut their losses and create something new, but I could be wrong. It sounds like Hideki had a plan at one point. I would be very surprised if Platinum Games keeps that same plan going, or if they decide to just try something completely new. Either way, that's why we haven't seen anything about Bayonetta 4 since the third game was released, and I think it'll be a ways out before we hear anything else. And that is everything we know. I will see you guys in the next one.